This is a Hot Pie Original.
I mean, to be a high performer is to be consistent, be sustainable. I think that's the word I would use when I think about high performance is sustainable. You know, I was an analytics guy, and for us, sustainability is not necessarily can you be consistent, it's the habits you have in place. Will those set you up to be consistent on a daily basis? And if you don't have a sustainable supply chain, you're not going to have consistent product, because again, it's a lot bigger than just what you do on the court and what you do in the weight room, and even what you do with your diet. There's a lot more that goes into it.
Hi, I'm Erik Korem, and this is The Blueprint. I've spent my life helping Olympic gold medalists, NFL, and NCAA athletes be the best at their craft. Now I'm taking that experience and translating it into your lives. This podcast is for busy professionals and household CEOs who care deeply about their family, career, and their health. There's an ocean of content to wade through, but I do the heavy lifting for you and distill cutting-edge science, leadership, and life skills into simple tactics optimized for your lifestyle and goals. Nathan Knight is a professional basketball player for the Minnesota Timberwolves. In this episode, Nathan and I discuss how autonomy drives growth and performance and the number one thing that kills a budding career. This is a special episode for me because Nathan was a player of mine at William & Mary, and I got to play a small role in his development, and I was blessed to watch him grow into a dominating player and, even more important, a man of impact. Today, I have one ask of you. I've been studying the growth playbooks of the best podcasts, and the number one thing to grow your show is through reviews. It takes less than 60 seconds, and it's critical for podcasters like myself. It would mean the world to me if you could head to the Apple Podcast app and leave a review on my show. My goal is to go from 60 to 150 reviews in the next 2 months, and with your help, I know we can do this. It's time for the It's Freaking Awesome Story of the Week, brought to you by The Festive Kitchen. Every week, we highlight the stories of people who went above and beyond and thought about someone else before themselves. Now that is freaking awesome. This week, we're featuring an unidentified Good Samaritan who pulled a man to safety just seconds before a train rolled into Union Station in New York City. On Wednesday afternoon, a man fell out of his wheelchair and onto the subway tracks in Union Station. With the help of other New Yorkers, a passerby quickly jumped onto the tracks and pulled the man to safety on the platform. Just seconds later, a train came barreling down the tracks, narrowly missing both of the men. The entire incident was recorded and posted to Subway Creature's Twitter account. The man who fell onto the tracks was taken to the hospital and is healthy, conscious, and in great condition, while the Good Samaritan who saved his life was never identified. He deserves an abundance of praise for his truly freaking awesome work. But before we get to my interview with Nathan, right now I just want to ask you something. Tell me if you know this story. You go out and spend hundreds of dollars on a fancy wearable device, hoping that it helps you achieve your wellness goals, and then it ends up in the sock drawer. Sound familiar? Or how about this? You follow those cookie cutter clickbait health recommendations like walking 10,000 steps a day, and all you get is anxious and demotivated when life gets in the way and you can't hit that magic number. It's time for an evolution of expectation and results. That's where AIM-7 comes in. AIM-7 sets busy people free to live their values every day by building lifelong healthy habits. We use the health data from your Apple Watch to create small, scientific, personalized recommendations for whatever you want to do. Sleep better, increase your energy, reduce your stress, or lose weight. If you're ready to finally unlock the power of your Apple Watch, then go to www.aim7.com. That's AIM7.com to get early and free access to our exclusive program. AIM7 starts small, and it starts with you. Your health data, your values to get to your thriving life. But now it's time to lean in and learn from the best. Nate, I'm really glad to have you here today. It's nice to reconnect with you.
Oh, thank you. No, the pleasure's all mine. It's been a long time since our days back at William & Mary.
No question. I'm really excited to catch up, and a lot has happened in your life. But before we get to the NBA and all the recent things, I really want to start kind of at the beginning. You were born in Hawaii and moved to Syracuse, New York when you were a kid. What was it like growing up in Syracuse?
I think the best way I can put it is we didn't have a lot, but we had enough. My mother, I was the youngest of four. My mom did everything she could to make sure that me and my siblings had, the tools necessary, both mentally and physically, to, get through school and, maintain grades and, have a, semi-sustainable childhood. As a child, that's all you can really ask for. Everything else is kind of, icing on the cake. But I think, the childhood that, I was provided was, a tougher one, but, it built me to the person I am today. So
was it tough just because of the financial situation, or were there other things going on?
I mean, financially, obviously that was, an obstacle for us, but I think Syracuse as a whole, people don't really, talk about it enough. It's, it's a pretty rough area where I grew up. On every side of town, there's some rough areas. And, if you pick out every rough area in Syracuse, I lived there for a stint at some point while I was, growing up. So just, the peer pressures that come with being raised around that kind of stuff, having family be around that kind of stuff, it was tough. And again, it was cognizant decisions made on my part, on my mother's part, to, do her best to keep us away from those kind of things.
Was sports something that kind of helped you stay like on the straight and narrow?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just tip of the iceberg, sports were after school activities. Keep us busy while mom was at work. And that turned into an outlet for me and my siblings, as we grew up. For me, it was basketball, using basketball. I mean, I was baseball first.
But, you were a pitcher.
Yeah, I was decent. I'm not gonna speak too highly of myself. That's not something I can really do. But yeah, baseball, and then transitioning into other sports, football and basketball. I'm using those as, outlets to, like you said, keep myself, busy, keep myself away from, some of the, bad things that are going on around me.
So did basketball find you, or did you find basketball?
Basketball found me. I think that's a really good question, because I want to say that I found it, but I remember there was a pivotal moment for me. This is my freshman year of high school. I had just finished a brutal football practice. This is before I filled out, so I'm maybe 150 pounds soaking wet, and
that's 100 pounds less than you are right now.
Exactly. So I remember walking through the gym. We walked through the basketball gym to get to our locker room, and I remember stopping and watching who ended up being my skills trainer, my coach. He was training someone else, and I just stood there and I watched for maybe 10, 15 minutes, just watched, didn't say a word. And I went up to him after, I showered. I came back in the locker room, introduced myself, and I think that was the moment that basketball found me. I mean, I always played, in leagues around the city, but it wasn't something that I really took seriously until, I had that moment with him, and he began to train me and, teach me some tricks of the trade as far as being a basketball player.
What is it about the game of basketball that you love so much?
I think the biggest thing I like is the imperfection of it. Basketball is a really imperfect game. There's a lot that can happen. There's a lot that you can prepare for, but you're never really, preparing for a perfect game. You're preparing to play as perfect of a game as you can. There are a whole bunch of outliers that go into a basketball game, and like life, it's an ebb and flow for 40, 48 minutes, depending on what level you're at. So I like the parallels it draws for me, at least in my life. It's imperfect, and you do everything you can, and sometimes it still doesn't work out.
Yeah, that's really true, man. I was on the bench for some of those imperfect games that turned out great, and some of the imperfect games that didn't turn out great. But that is one of the great things about sport, is that, we used to talk about situations, in football, which I coached a lot, basketball, it's the same thing. Almost every sport that's a team sport, there's situations that you have to train for. It's not, can I shoot a free throw? Or can I shoot? There's a lot of people that can shoot the ball, but it's, can you execute or do something in a chaotic situation with constraints on you?
Exactly.
And yeah, so you ended up not going directly to college. Am I correct?
Yes, I did 4 years public school, Nottingham High School. Mm-hmm. And then transitioned into an extra year of high school. I did the postgraduate year at Kimball Union Academy. And then from there, I cascaded into college.
So you went to William and Mary. Now that's a totally different vibe than Syracuse, New York. I mean, if you William and Mary was the second oldest institution in America. You know, I think it's the oldest chartered one. If you've ever been there, it's in Colonial Williamsburg. So you go from Colonial Williamsburg, which is like what it was during, you know, colonial times, to like onto this historic campus. Like, what is it about William and Mary that you were attracted to?
I think it was that major contrast that really drew me to William and Mary. Growing up in Syracuse, and I mean, by the time I took my visit to William and Mary, I was a couple months into boarding school in New Hampshire, so I had a taste of New England. But yeah, I mean, walking on campus, it was a completely different feel, a completely different vibe for me. The pace was, you know, a lot slower. The city itself, the pace is a lot slower, but the school has a lot going on, and it just felt really homey for me, if that makes sense. That transition, I felt like going from boarding school into William and Mary felt like the easiest one for me, and it gave me the opportunity to get, you know, a decent distance away from home. So I had to take advantage.
And it's a very academically challenging institution. This isn't like, you know, you're going to some state school. This is an elite institution where they almost pride themselves on putting you through the ringer.
Yes,
was that a shock to you?
I mean, I knew what I was getting into, but I think the biggest thing is I just had to go through it. I knew that it was going to be tough, you know, leaving high school and, you know, the summer and the first semester, I'm like, this is going to be tough. But it was everything I could have expected and more once I got there. It was, you know, extremely challenging, you know, applying some of the skills that I needed to be a successful student, time management, sacrificing, you know, other
what did
things.
You major in?
Business analytics.
That's right.
Data science. Yeah.
We're going to have to talk a little about how that's impacted your game or the way that you look at statistics and stuff like that. But your freshman year, you lost 45 pounds. It's hard to believe because the guy that I met going into his junior year was just a different body type, you know, broad shoulders, more narrow waist. But you were 45 pounds overweight. Like, where and how did you went from 150 pounds, like soaking wet, to how did you get up to 45 pounds overweight?
Yeah, I mean, going into William and Mary, I was probably, my heaviest, I was pushing 280, 285. And that was a mixture of not picking up a basketball after my fourth year of public school, just because I didn't know what was coming next for me. I kind of hit like a rough patch. It was tough on me mentally. You know, I had some local offers, but for me, I was really looking forward to getting away from the state of New York. And that didn't seem like a feasible opportunity for me. So, you know, I kind of gave up for a couple months, and mentally it took a toll on me, and physically it took an even bigger toll on me. When the opportunities finally did arise and I was able to get myself on campus, I, you know, had set myself back 45 pounds.
What was it? Was it hard? Did it take a while for you to lose that weight? I know your coach then, Coach Shaver, really applauded your efforts to lose that weight. It's not easy to lose 15 pounds for some people, but lose 45. What did you do to get that weight off?
I mean, I think the first like 20 pounds were pretty easy, because it was just, you know, when the weight is on like that, and you increase the physical activity and you change the diet drastically like that, the first couple pounds come off pretty easily. But it was just consistency, because it sucked. I was so used to eating some of those, you know, we call those pleasure foods that taste good, but they don't really give your body what it needs. I was so used to, you know, relying on those for my macros. So transitioning into more whole foods, more foods that gave me more bang for my buck, it sucked. I'm not going to lie. But it was just, you know, staying the course, being consistent, and, you know, not giving in to temptation was probably the biggest thing for me mentally. And, you know, seeing the results made it a lot easier as well.
When you were faced with temptation to, like, what was your big crutch food? Like, if you were to like go to emotional eating?
Yeah, Chinese food for sure.
Yeah, I remember you used to go like once a week to that Chinese buffet.
Ichiban, yeah, all-you-can-eat buffet. Yeah.
So, like, when you got that craving, how did you fight that craving?
I think it was just, a it was an internal conversation I had with myself, internal struggle. Just, asking myself what I really want for myself is like, is the short-term gratification worth, the long-term goals that I'm trying to achieve right now? And the answer is always no. So, and some days it was harder than others, but that was, the internal struggle I had with myself.
So you really connected with your why.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a moment where you really said, this is why I'm here, this is what I'm doing this for?
Yes, it didn't happen until my senior year, actually. It was when my mom came to senior night, walking her out. My mom's she's an emotional wreck, and seeing all the people applauding, and, she's just super proud. And, my mom's my why, my family's my why. So having them there for me at that moment was, a really big, culmination for me.
So you progressed as a player all 4 years. It wasn't like you came out as a freshman. You were good. No, don't get me wrong. You were a good basketball player, but it wasn't like you were the CAA player of the year, defensive player of the year as a freshman. I think you were truly a guy that progressed. I was there for 2 of those years, and I got to watch you mature physically and mentally. It seemed like every year you took a step, or a big step, 2 or 3 big steps. What do you think you attribute that to? Was it just because you're this is my why, and then you could reflect on where you needed to grow? What was the secret, I guess you could say, to that progression over those 4 years?
I think the secret for me was, I don't know, it's not going to make sense until I explain it, but just, the more autonomous I came and what I was able to do for myself, physically and mentally, the better I became. My freshman and sophomore years, just transitioning from, the access I had, the access to different foods and different types of training that I had when I first got to college. And then, the type of training that you brought to William & Mary, my final 2 years, that opened up, more avenues for, different ways to better myself, not more than, just traditional fashions, like in the weight room and on the court. There were more avenues that I could find ways to better myself as an athlete and, get myself closer to where I needed to go. And that all ties back to autonomy. You gave us the choice and the opportunity to, go out and make those decisions for ourselves. And that, allowed me to progress in the way I needed to.
Well, man, I appreciate the little shout out there, but when you give somebody control or give them the ability to make a decision for themselves, you really, I guess you could say, you get to see their character. You know what I'm saying? And same thing for me or anybody else. When you give somebody the reins, nobody wants to be micromanaged, right?
Right.
In the workforce, when you don't micromanage somebody and you go, hey, this is your deal. You're the expert. Go run with it. That's what great organizations are about. And that's really awesome that you took hold of that, because over those 4 years, you really changed. Your body, even when I got there, your body changed. Even from your junior to senior year, your game changed. Now, at the end of your junior year, the coach that recruited you there, Coach Shaver, who was there for a very long time, got let go, and you had a decision to make. A lot of guys transferred, but you decided to stay. Why did you stay?
There's layers to that, if I'm being completely honest. I think, the front layer was, again, it was stemming back to my why, and, having conversations with my mom and my family. My mom, I think, my mom loves William & Mary more than I do. And she didn't even go there. So, the ties that I have to that school and, the amount of emotion that me and my family have for that school was something that my mom really emphasized for me. And, my mom she was like, I always want you to go out and, pursue your dreams, but, in time, when the time is right. And after having a conversation with my mom, it just felt like the right decision to come back. And there was a lot of uncertainty, testing the waters with the coaching change, with a lot of guys leaving. I was hesitant, but again, I feel like I made the right decision. I felt like I made the right decision at the right time. I gave myself the opportunity to, do my due diligence, exert all my, resources before I made my decision.
We're going to take a break for just a moment to talk about how you can get exclusive content designed just for high performers like you. If you're looking for information and resources to improve your health, well-being, and performance, then sign up for my free high-performance newsletter, Adaptation. Just go to www.erikkorem.com and sign up now. This newsletter is my effort to bring zero-cost, high-performance resources and tools to anyone with a desire to improve. Now, back to the show.
That's a very mature decision. I mean, it's not an easy place to be, especially when you're a wanted player, and you could have gone play Power 5 basketball, for sure at, a major team. But you decided to stay. But when you stayed, you didn't just stay, and it wasn't like you crowned yourself king. It was almost like you became more humble. And you really had an amazing season again, and you had some big games against some big time opponents. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we can.
I mean, Oklahoma. We lost, but
yeah, that was. All those games were, for mid-majors, and I think I speak for more than myself. It's like those games are, you look forward to those, and you accept the challenge head on, and you do everything you can to try to, win those games. And yeah, Oklahoma, I just felt like everything was going right that game. The practices leading up to it, felt right. And, I was just feeling good going into the game, and I was able to find myself in the right position on the court and, make some timely shots, make some tough shots when my team needed me to do so. And I think more importantly, we were playing really well together for a majority of the game. I say majority because we, eventually lost, but we had control of that game for 38 of the 40 minutes that we played. It's just, the final two that took us out of it. But yeah, that game, there were others. I think the biggest thing was just, again, mentality, just being consistent with that, not letting, you look forward to those games, but not letting the atmosphere, dictate how you come out and prepare yourself.
You were clutch that season. There was a lot of times you went to the line. A big guy. Usually you don't want the big guy at the line when the game's. You know what I'm saying? Historically, you don't want Shaq at the line, right? But you would go to the line and you would drill it. What enabled you to do that? Perform in these clutch situations.
That's a great question. I think it's just, again, it just goes back to a mentality. I just looked at them as another opportunity to, make myself a little bit better. Resume builders. Every time I stepped on the court was a resume builder, being able to, practice some of those things, being calm and collected and, being consistent regardless of how much time's left on the clock with the score, is just being the same player through and through. And, that allowed me to be successful in those clutch moments. And, hindsight is 2020. Looking back, it's just, again, a lot of things went my way towards those final stretches of those games. And yeah, man, I think it just goes back to a mindset of consistency and just, doing what's necessary.
What was the game when you dribbled all the way down the court almost and shot the ball with 3 or 4 seconds left? What game was that?
Oh, that was Northeastern at home. I remember that.
Crazy.
That was crazy.
You're not supposed to be able to dribble that far with the ball before getting fouled.
Yeah, it was packed house. I remember Fisher, we would get in the huddle, and there was a bunch of options, but they just I put the ball on the floor and I'm driving. The guy's just, he's leaning on my side. I'm like, I can go all the way. And then no one stepped up to help. I swore somebody was going to step up to help. You're not going to let their best player dribble all the way down the court and get a wide open layup. But yeah, that was crazy. Packed house, and I made it, and everyone went crazy. It was awesome.
Yeah, that was a really awesome moment. I remember that. You had a fantastic season. Things didn't go our way in the conference tournament. And what really stinks is we had a great team, and even if we would have won the tournament, we still wouldn't have been able to play in the tournament.
Yeah, no,
because of COVID. Because William & Mary's one of a couple teams that has never made the NCAA tournament.
They call it the Forbidden Four. It wasn't Forbidden Five, but then a team made it a couple years ago. So now it's the Forbidden Four.
I'm very confident that that's not going to be the case forever.
No, absolutely not. William & Mary is trending in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, Coach Fisher's. I don't know about you, but I learned a lot about culture from him.
Yeah, I did. I think that was the biggest thing I learned from him.
Do you remember when he? What was one of the tenets about? Oh, be honesty.
Yeah,
and so he always talked about
the core values.
Yes, so he had his core values. And this is a first-time head coach. And like the first time he and I ever met, he's like, this is what I believe in. I was like, wow, this is pretty impressive. But then one of the core values, what were the core values, Nate? One of them was like honesty. Okay.
It was hard work.
Yeah.
Communication, trust, focus. And because I remember he had the core values and they had the pyramid in the locker room. I'm just trying to remember.
He's going to hate me for this one. Like we both, but here's what
I should know it.
Yeah, you should. You said it every day. It's going to come to you here in a second. But one of them was like something around honesty or something like that. And I had you guys do a conditioning test. And the conditioning test, I felt that there were a few players that if I told them, like I just said, hey, like here's the mark that you need to hit. And I like moved the mark up more than it should have been. And everybody hit it or exceeded it. Yeah. And because I felt there was just a couple guys that wouldn't empty the tank unless I set the bar to a certain point.
Right.
So Coach Fisher calls me in his office and he's like, Erik, he's like, hey, I can't remember the core value right now. It was either honesty or something like that. And he's like, hey, he's like, I'd like to use you as an example. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, you said you told the players it was this, even though it really wasn't. And he's like, I would like to use you as an example as like, hey, Coach Korem wasn't trying to be, he wasn't like trying to do something malicious. But if we believe in like being honest in our communication, then this is not how and I was like, use it, like call me out if that's what it needs to, So anyway, he was just that kind of guy though. Like I really respected him for that. Like he was going to like the first person he was going to pick on was going to be me, but he wanted to use me as an example of a situation where like, hey, we want to be able to trust you guys 100% and just be clear all the time. Yeah, so absolutely. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. I do remember that actually. I remember he came to us right after that.
Yeah. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, Fisher, I think that's his strong suit is just like his ability to, relay his messages through, his examples. Like those are kind of the things that really struck a chord with me. It's his ability to, have applicable examples of what he was trying to get across to us.
And he was calm, man. He was cool under pressure. I never saw him like lose his mind. And
I never seen him scream, nothing. Like, and that's even more intimidating than having a coach who's like, screaming at you. That's even more intimidating when he's just monotone.
It's self-control. It's something that I really admire. So what would you say were your big takeaways from your time at William & Mary? Like when you graduated from William & Mary, you hit the 2,000 point mark, one of, I think, 4 people to ever do that in the history of the school. This is an old school, 1693. Like they let everybody know 1693, it's been around forever. I mean, that's a pretty big accomplishment. But of all that, like, what did you walk away from as like, this is what I learned from my time in college?
I think the biggest thing that I took away from William & Mary was, I don't know, that's a good question. I took away so many valuable lessons, but I think just, the power of time, the power that time has on changing a person and the impact that, experiences has on, someone's life. I mean, I've been alive for 23 years and the 4 years I spent at William & Mary were probably the most pivotal of my life. So it's just the power of time, the power of experience, I think was the biggest thing that I took away from that school. I ran into so many different people from all walks of life, and the lessons I was able to learn are things that, again, I don't think I can put a price on, things that I'll never take for granted. And that all is just like part of the experience that I had. And that was the biggest thing I take away from that. It's just I'll never get those years back. And how valuable that experience is. It's a lot more than just going to college or playing basketball in college. It's a whole hodgepodge of experiences. And I think, being able to walk away valuing it as much as I did was probably just the biggest thing I took away from that.
Now, you've entered the NBA. You went undrafted. How'd that make you feel, first of all, to be undrafted?
That honestly didn't make me feel any type of way. I think going into it, it was, it's every kid's dream to get drafted. But for me, my goal was, to get to the NBA. And, and again, I can accredit this to my time spent at William & Mary. I understand that, no two people's path is the same. There are guys who get drafted and, don't stick around unfortunately. And there are guys who will go undrafted and have very successful careers. No two people's paths ever looks the same. So, draft night definitely stung a little bit, not having my name called, but I knew that there was an opportunity out there for me somewhere.
We're so grateful to the Blueprint podcast title sponsor, The Festive Kitchen. The zany creators of The Festive Kitchen set out to create the perfect, sweet, salty, crunchy snack with just a little heat. After tempting numerous flavor combinations, they started sharing samples with friends and family who would ask, "What's the name of this snack?" Since there was no name, they just answered, "I don't know, but it's freaking awesome." Hilariously, the name stuck and a new product was born. It's a snack and it's freaking addicting, and it's called It's Freaking Awesome. You can order online now at shop.festivekitchen.com and itsfreakingawesome.com. Trust me, this snack tastes as cool as it sounds. Brace yourself, you'll be ordering frequently for your freaking monthly fix. The good news is they now have a freaking monthly subscription. Again, it's available online at shop.festivekitchen.com or itsfreakingawesome.com. That's ITSFREAKIN awesome.com.
That's pretty powerful, man. So I love that because, my time in the NFL, you would see guys that were drafted. It was really funny. The coach would always say, there's 7 rounds in the NFL draft, right? There's 2 rounds in the NBA draft, right?
Yeah.
So there were 7 rounds, and they always did this to the rookies. I don't know what they do to the rookies in the NBA, but they would make you stand up during mini camp, and they would be like, "Hey, how much money? What was your signing bonus? What round were you drafted in?" And basically, if you're drafted in the 6th or 7th round, they're basically called you a free agent. It's the same thing. You know what I'm saying? There is no, and there was guys that came in early and they were gone. They were early draft picks and they were gone in a matter of a year or two. And then there was these guys that were free agents that had this chip on their shoulder in a positive way. And they just worked really, really hard. And next thing you know, they're in the starting lineup or they're a core 4 special teams guy. And this year you found yourself getting some pretty good minutes at certain points. And you even had some really big games. I know that I would see on William & Mary's social media. And then I would flip over because, you weren't posting you would post yourself getting off a plane or wearing something cool, but it wasn't hey, look what I did. Cause that's not the kind of guy you are. But when you got to the NBA and you kind of put on your hard hat, you start take me through the process. You get drafted, you go to Summer League in Vegas. Did they have that because of COVID?
So the NBA draft is usually in June. So a normal schedule is a June draft. You spend some time with the team before you go to Vegas for Summer League. Then you come back and you do training camp and you get ready for, preseason and the regular season. The draft wasn't until November. So the draft was November 18th. And I was, I found my situation that night and I flew out November 19th. I was in Williamsburg the night of the draft and I flew from Richmond the next day to go to Atlanta. And I'm trying to think, it was a week or two, maybe. Could have been a little more, could have been a little less. And then we started training camp. And then we got right into preseason. It was kind of, that expedited schedule that COVID granted us. And so, it all happened really fast. Were you on
pins and needles about getting cut? Is that how it works at that point? You can get cut any day or do you, how does that work?
No, I was fortunate enough to, sign a 2-way contract, which is, you're with the team, but you're with their G League affiliate. but you can also play with the team. And in a COVID year, it ended up working out better for me because they had the G League bubble in Orlando. And certain teams opted out of the bubble and didn't play. So certain teams didn't have their G League team in the bubble. So most of the two-way guys who were on the G League teams that didn't get called to the bubble were able to stay up with their teams. So I was able to stay up with the NBA affiliate for the season, for the majority of the regular season.
Wow. And you actually, you didn't just sit on the bench. You got to actually play a little bit, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. And I think, if we're talking emotion-wise, first it was, oh my God, I'm in the game. And then it was like, it was shock. And then it was like, there was like a moment of like anxiousness, like, oh my God, I'm in the game right now. Like, what am I doing? Talking to myself, But
who are you playing? What was the team? That
was Memphis. Was the first time that I got in. That first time I remember. That was my deer in the headlights moment. I remember that. I'll check into the game. I'm like taking off my stuff and I'm walking on the court and I remember like I think we were on offense. No, we were actually on defense that first possession. I remember I got in the game. I'm sitting in my defense stance. I'm like, I'm actually in the game right now. Then I look and the guy's bringing the ball in the court. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in the game right now. And I was completely zoned out for like the first like 2 or 3 seconds I stepped on the court because I was just like in such awe because I just like couldn't, it didn't like, I really didn't get a chance to, resonate with me that like I was actually, here. It just felt like, just showing up, doing my work.
How long did it take you to get into it to where you were like not thinking about the moment?
I don't know. That's a good question. For me, it was like, I don't know. This year, as far as, what it means to me, it's at a premium. I've talked about, you can ask anybody that grew up with me. I've talked about the NBA since I picked up the basketball. So every time I stepped on the court, every time I even got to go out there and cheer my teammates on, whenever I was out there during a game, I'm just like, oh my God, like I'm actually here. I'm doing this. And that came with, the biggest thing it came with was, gratitude. And it came with, just a flux of emotions. I can't really explain it, but I think it really all calmed down for me a little bit. Like when the regular season ended and we cascaded in the playoffs a little bit, that's when, I was kind of, able to, gear that down a little bit because it was just, I think the best way I can describe it was like, it's like a youthful excitement, kind of like a child. Like I was just like a kid. I'm like so happy to just be there, and I was like that throughout the year, regular season and playoffs, but I was able to, I had to shake that, childishness about it a little bit to, lock in and be prepared to help my team for the playoffs.
What's the biggest difference between college and the NBA? Is it like everybody just that much better of an athlete? Is it just like, what is the big difference?
The big difference is, it's the skill. And I think what that means, like, it's not the skill that's different. It's what it takes mentally. I think it's like, because in college, like I can get away, I can say this now. I was able to, get away with some mental lapses I made on the court just because I was bigger than who was in front of me, or I was a little more athletic than the person who was in front of me. In the NBA, that's not the case. It was, the mental sharpness that comes with being a professional athlete is something that I feel like goes unnoticed sometimes. And I took it for granted until I got there. There's a level of mental focus that you need to have 24/7 whenever you are at work, whenever you are there doing your job, because the person in front of you is trying to do his job too, and he's locked in. So there's a level of mental readiness that you have to have when you're playing a professional sport at any capacity. And I think that's the biggest difference. Because in college,
how many games are there?
Live that stuff.
How many games are in an NBA season?
82 on a regular NBA season.
And this year, how many did you have?
We had 72. It was kind of an expedited schedule with COVID. We're trying to get back on track.
Still, that's a lot of games. You're 72 games at home and on the road, traveling every 2.5 to 3 days. And you're a role player. You're on the bench most of the time. How do you stay locked into a game? Because I can imagine it could be easy to drift and get into on the bench. And then all of a sudden they're like, Nate, you're in. And you're like, it's the third quarter or second quarter. You need to and you got to be ready to go. Like, how do you stay locked in into the moment. And then, cause you had I saw some really cool games. Like you had like a 10-point game or something like that. You had some, pretty massive dunk or whatever. But like, I think about basketball and baseball being very similar because you play so many stinking games and it's like, you can't lapse. Like, how do you stay locked in?
I think this was something that, even before the season started, it's kind of, an understanding of, where I am and what I'm doing. Like you said, I'm a role player and I understood that. And I think the biggest thing for me was getting to the NBA. And then once I realized that was going to be a reality for me was, what do I want from, my time in the NBA? And for me, I'm not looking for the instant gratification. It was, I'm here for consistent, sustainable career. I want to be here as long as my body lets me. And that comes with, staying ready at all times, because complacency is the biggest killer of careers. So just like a moment of complacency by me could set me back way more than I ever could have expected it to. So having that level of just like having that understanding of, all gas, no brakes was, what kept me ready.
So how's your life changed since you're in the NBA now?
It's changed in almost every facet, really. Obviously, the financial stipulations of being a professional athlete are, I'm blessed. I can't sugarcoat it. I'm very grateful for, the financial stipulations that come with my job. But I think, at the very base level, I'm playing the sport I love for a living. And I think that's just, a blessing in itself. And my life has changed in almost every single way.
Is it hard to, I just want to talk about money for a second. Everybody looks at like NBA or pro teams and they're like, man, everybody's making 10, 15 mil a year. It's not the truth. No. So like, the players that we all know, max contracts, like they've made their money as long. The sad thing is a lot of athletes in every sport are broke when they're done. But if you're financially prudent and wise about it, you could be set up for generational wealth. But is it hard to be next to somebody who's got that? And like you are where you are right now, like the goal is you play one day at a time, you keep putting together a resume for yourself, and then you can sign that great contract. How do you balance out? Like, that's how they live. This is how I live. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I think the best way to answer your question is just kind of go back to something I said earlier. It's, no two journeys are ever the same. I don't know how he got here. I have an idea. He's well known just like I am. I'm sure I can Google it, how he got here and what he had to go through. But, no two journeys are the same. And, for me personally, I know what I went through and I know the type of person it made me. I'm very grateful for the things that I have. And I wouldn't have had it any other way, honestly, going back. I think, just not compare myself, because comparison can kill someone's joy. I'm sitting there, and again, like I'm extremely blessed. Like I do what I do for a living, and I make the money I make. And on a much wider scale, it's ridiculous. It's insane. And someone might be making more, but again, it's just like, why even try to worry myself with that kind of stuff? I'll get there. If that's in the cards for me, I'll get there. If I continue to do what I'm supposed to do, I can't compare it all, because that's when, you mix in some of the bad emotions, the jealousy, the spite, the, just all those other things that, just don't make for a very successful person.
It's a very mature response, man. Comparison is the thief of joy. So I always ask my guests like a couple questions every single time on the podcast. What does high performance mean to you, Nate? What does it mean to be a high performer?
To be a high performer is to be consistent, be sustainable. I think that's the word I would use when I think about high performance, is sustainable. I was an analytics guy, and for us, sustainability is not necessarily can you be consistent, it's the habits you have in place. Well, those set you up to be consistent on a daily basis. And if you don't have a sustainable supply chain, you're not going to have consistent product. And that's what I think about when it comes to high performance, because again, it's a lot bigger than just what you do on the court and what you do in the weight room. And even what you do with your diet, there's a lot more that goes into it when you think of the high performance. And yeah, it's just, I think about sustainability. It's like all those habits that you know, put yourself around, are those setting you up to be consistent on a daily basis?
I love the supply chain, dude. That's a great response. I mean, that's a very thoughtful and practical way to look at it. So what habits or practices have you put in place to help you perform at a high level?
Yeah, I think for me, and I mean, you know this, I'm a workhorse, first of all. I love lifting. I love doing all that stuff. I love, you know, putting myself through the ringer. That's just how I've been. But I think more recently, it's been more the mental side that, you know, I've implemented some of those habits to, you know, make myself more sustainable, make myself more consistent. You know, headspace, books, a lot of books, you know, trying to clear my mind, and, you know, meditation. There are so many things that I've, you know, just dabbled in over the past year and some change, just trying to, you know, make myself, you know, clearer in between the ears. And I think it's really helped me.
So what are you learning about right now? Like, how are you investing in yourself, like right now? What's your focus going into summer league and training camp soon?
Yeah, I mean, right now for me, it's just remaining consistent, because environment has changed. We're not in a COVID year anymore. Well, we still are in COVID, but the, you know, regulations and policies and guidelines that they had in place are kind of, you know, they shifted for vaccinated people, and they shifted since, you know, last season, and the environment's changed. But, you know, it's all about remaining consistent. And like, it was a lot easier to, you know, not do anything when you can't do anything. When all NBA is allowing you to do is, you know, get your groceries and leave your house when you have to. Again, environment's changed. It's just all about remaining consistent. That's the biggest thing I'm trying to focus on right now. And again, just prepare myself the best I can to, you know, go out and have a successful summer league, whatever that means.
Nate, how can people find you and support you? Like, you know, people are like, man, I like this guy, Nate. Like, where can they find you?
I mean, I'm on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Nathan Knight. You know, I'm big into conversations. I'm big into picking brains. If you have some valuable insight on anything that can, you know, help me, or if you know, need any information on how I can help you, just, you know, reach out. I'm only a message or a phone call away.
Nate, this for me was an absolute pleasure. Seeing, you know, the progression of you over several years is just, it's why I did what I did, is to be around guys like you, you know, and I'm just so thankful for you, your friendship, and I'm just super excited to see the impact that you're going to continue to have on your teammates and what the future has for you. Because I know whenever basketball comes to an end, like, the story is just going to keep going. Like, you're going to keep having an impact. And so if you guys are not following Nathan Knight, you need to follow this guy, because he's going to, I don't know if he's going to be the governor or a senator or CEO or whatever, NBA All-Star, whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, he's going to keep making an impact. So thanks for joining us today, Nate.
I know. Thanks for having me.
If today's podcast enriched your life in any way, please support The Blueprint by sharing this podcast with someone you think that could benefit from today's conversation. Also, please consider checking out the Festive Kitchen's amazing product. It's freaking awesome. It makes for a fantastic gift for a colleague, friend, or loved one, or as a freaking fun snack when you want something sweet and savory to tantalize your taste buds.
Thanks for listening. You can find more episodes and all other Hot Pie Media originals baked fresh daily at our home on the web at hotpiemedia.com, the Hot Pie Media YouTube channel, or wherever you listen to podcasts.